Gotham Knights is sloppy. For a game that was mocked for its mobile game graphics since the beginning, it's not a surprise that it didn't turn out amazing. There was a lot I would change, and frankly, I didn't have the greatest time, or even a good time. The only reason I got through over 30 hours is because I was binging Modern Family. I'm not kidding, I got through 6 seasons. This game isn't terrible, it just feels like the devs didn't really care. And if I'm being completely honest, this just feels like a reskin of Assassin's Creed Syndicate, with somehow even less content. If I was the one making this game, there was a lot I would add. You'd be surprised how many things are just missing. These aren't even game-changing additions. For example, a hit combo counter to actually see the combos you're hitting, or a jump button while you're stationary, or the ability to interact with trains or cars, like to be able to grapple on them or stand on them. There's just a whole lot of basic things just aren't here. Let's begin with the main story. So if you don't want that spoiled, just skip ahead to the timestamp on the screen. I'm gonna give you 3 seconds. Ready? 3, 2, 1. The story is not that bad. It starts out with Batman dying and you solving his final case. And then it quickly unfolds into this big reveal of the Court of Owls bootlegging their own Lazarus pit. The rest of the story is just you fighting the League, and then for some reason Man-Bats show up. This is where I gave up. I'm not kidding. I could not get past these stupid Man-Bats. Little did I know the plot really thickened after I gave up. So after this, Bruce gets revived and then immediately sacrifices himself. So he comes back for maybe 20 minutes. The story is cut up into 8 little bite-sized chapters, and some of these missions have a little bit of creativity baked into them, like for example the labyrinth or the puzzles. All things considered, it took me a good 12 hours, maybe more, to complete it, well, up to the point that I did. Outside of the main story, there are 3 side stories: Clayface, Harley Quinn, and Mr. Freeze. These 3 mini boss fights. And if I'm being honest, they feel like throwaway stories, just some extra content to fill your time. The mission lengths themselves vary in length, ranging from 3 missions all the way up to 6 missions, with some pretty solid boss fights at the end. But you don't get anything special for completing them. I mean, the satisfaction of getting less things to do on the to-do list was enough for me, because for most of the game I had crippling anxiety just looking at the to-do list. But there aren't any real physical rewards. There isn't an OP freeze suit you get or a beefy freeze gun. There is nothing that motivates you to go after these bosses. The main storyline and the side stories all feel separate. Nothing feels cohesive, and once I got to a certain point in the game, I completely forgot how it started. I had no recollection of a guy named Langstrom, and that this entire story came from his death. There are some cool ideas here, but the way it was all crafted together was underwhelming. The only reason I think they included the League of Shadows was to give some sort of new enemy type. These guys can vanish. The devs probably thought the game was going to be stale, with everything feeling the exact same, so they had to spice it up with something new. The game could have been perfectly fine if it included only the Court of Owls. They're a pretty cool villainous organization and could carry their own game, without the need of another secret villainous organization. Outside of the main stories, there are other things to fill your time. You have some classic collectibles to find around the map. You can go collect some secret caches with some rewards that you don't really care for. You can go to some other NPCs for rewards that you really don't care for, and you can go plant some evidence, or set up a fast travel system, or go for time trials on a bike or a glider. There are things to do, but the game throws all of them at you at the same time, all on the to-do list, and you might just break down and cry. The level designs for most of the game feel more or less the same. It's all just the same mission. There are times where they do something that feels fresh and new, but very rarely. Like for example, there was this one level where you had to be sneaky or you failed the mission, and I finally got excited. I like this, because up to this point, stealth has felt like an option, like a way you could play it, or it was a bonus, but it was never a requirement. And this level finally made you be stealthy. But this only lasted for a part of the mission, and that sucks when Batgirl's whole thing is stealth. The way the mission was designed was that you had to go sneak around these guards at this fancy party to get to this place to do whatever. But leaving the party, you can just fight everyone. Like, what? Do I not have to be sneaky anymore? And that's what most of this game is. Just going to this place, fighting everyone, and then leaving. Or if they really want to get creative, stand over there and then fight everyone. Or stand over there. There were so many opportunities for some interesting level design, like with the railguns. You can have a fun little combination to disarm disarm them or a way to aim it at the glass versus simply holding down A. It gets very mundane very fast. Take for example one of the first few missions you do. So Harley has released a balloon with some book or something, I don't know, but the main focus of the mission was to get this book attached to the balloon, so you have to chase after it. And I thought, oh, that's pretty different. I was gonna have to chase it down. But no, you walk behind it for a little bit and it just leads you into an arena where once again you have to fight everyone with a weird cover of La Vida Loca playing over top. I thought I was gonna have to, actually chase the balloon around, but no, it was the same recycled fight again and again and again. It's like they're not even thinking when they design these levels, or they just don't care enough to switch it up every now and then. And this is just inside the main story. What do you think you have to do outside of this? Well, the exact same thing. Playing in the open world does offer some variety in the type of crimes you have to stop. Not much, but some. At most, you have 5 different crimes to stop. So after a few nights of doing this, you quickly go back to the same places and it begins to feel incredibly repetitive. You go to the same few places to fight the same few enemies over and over and over again. And once you fight them, you go back to the belfry to get the exact same crimes to go back out and fight again. So no matter how hard you try, no matter how many crimes you stop, they will never leave your to-do list. Every time you check, you will have some crime to stop. And you do get to fight a few different factions of criminals: the Freaks, the Mob, the Regulators, the Court of Owls, and the League of Shadows. Most of these factions play the exact same way, with each faction having their own specific enemy type, if it's the annoying drone lady or the big buff lady or the Talons, and the factions also have their own exclusive type of crime. When I say exclusive, that's in air quotes, because it's more of the good old tried and true stand over here or stand over there and fight everyone. The most creative type of crime the devs came up with is the timed hostage bomb situation, where it forces you to be stealthy or the timer starts. By far my favorite crime. Same with the organ transport. When there's a timer, the game becomes infinitely more enjoyable because you are forced to be stealthy. But even then, once you do lose a few times, it starts to get boring. So in all honesty, they're not trying anything that's really going to shake the industry. It's all been done before. But there was one thing that was kind of a surprise. That was the investigations, where you have to look around the murder scene and connect the dots. That was cool. I'll give them credit for that. The actual gameplay itself started off pretty, I don't know the right word, excruciatingly miserable. You get your 4 basic attacks: your melee, your heavy melee, your ranged attack, and then your heavy ranged attack, in 2 buttons. And for a good chunk of the game, this is all you have. So it makes every fight encounter be like, okay, dodge, X, X, hold X, Y, Y, X, X, Y, hold Y, X, X. Saying it gets boring. Just mashing the same buttons over and over again doesn't even really put it into words how miserable it is. But sitting perched up on a ledge, hitting an ambush attack, makes it a bit less miserable. But where the game really shines is the combat. I know that sounds kind of backwards, but if you put in the time and unlock the abilities, it makes the game infinitely more interesting. Over the course of the game, you slowly unlock your RB abilities, your momentum attacks, if it's through specific side quest or progressing through the story. When fully leveled up, each character has their own 8 unique abilities, and it really helps make the 4 different heroes feel unique. These abilities are what make the characters feel like actual characters. They all start out pretty much the same, and over the course of the game they find their uniqueness. This whole system is the most creative element of the game. You charge up your little momentum bar and exchange that for dope ass attacks. That's not to say this hasn't been done before, but it's just the most creative thing here. And alongside slowly unlocking all of these abilities, each hero has their own knighthood quest to complete, where at the end you get a cool travel ability instead of the bat bike, which I'll talk about later. And these travel abilities are a swing and a miss. Like Batgirl has a classic Batman glider, and then they kind of ran out of ideas for the rest of the crew. Nightwing has a Fortnite glider, Robin has a weird teleporter thing, and Red Hood, well, his is kind of cool, he just jumps around. I thought these were going to be the main point of travel, but all of these are incredibly slow and are not useful in the slightest. So for most of the game, you have to rely on the bat bike, which was so disappointing. When I first started playing, I was already pretty down, and I said to myself, okay, this bat bike better be good or it's over. And the moment I got on and felt how unimaginative the controls were, the bar dropped to the floor. My expectations were taken out back and shot, and that's why I avoided it for as long as I could, and just used the glider. The bike is so blocky, there's no speedometer, you can pop a wheelie, but what for? It doesn't really do anything, and if you pop a wheelie, you can also get caught on cars, and just come to a complete stop. So what's the point? It feels stiff, and it automatically levels out if you sway left or right. The whole thing is lacking any sort of real personality, and it's just a big letdown. Your basic movements for walking are fine, I have no issue with them. But there is one thing. You cannot jump while stationary. Let me say that again. You cannot jump while standing still. I can't tell you how many times I've been standing around some little wall and I couldn't just jump over it. You can jump while grappling, you can jump while doing parkour, but you can't jump while standing still. Oh, and literally for any and all interactions in the game, and I mean every single one, it's always holding A. Even to open doors. I don't understand that. Why can't you just barge into rooms? Every door entrance is an animation and I will not stand for it. At the start of the game, you have to run through 20-ish tutorials to fully get to grips with the game, and some of these levels are nonsense. Mechanics like perfect evade or perfect attacks are pretty common in games, and these movements are bonuses for some missions, but the way the game works is that you literally cannot do them. I don't think I've ever completed one of these bonuses during a real mission, and I have no idea how I completed them in the tutorials. I literally sat in training for 20 minutes trying to get 5 perfect evades, and I still don't know how to do it, because apparently dodging the attack is not the same thing as evading it. And on top of all of this, the game is very buggy. It lags quite often, with frame dips being a usual occurrence. At a certain point in the game, Red Hood's hoodie strings were erect for the rest of the game. Literally every cutscene, boing, straight as arrows. And there's also this other scene, this touching, a very emotional cutscene with Alfred, where, you know what, I'm not even gonna tell you. Just watch it and tell me what you notice.
Burying Bruce was the hardest thing I've ever done. I trust Master Grayson.
Yeah, he sure has. Don't you know it's dangerous out here at night?
Every day I find new reasons to be proud.
Come inside.
Let's not be long though.
Now let's get into the meat and potatoes, the 4 different characters. As any normal human being would, I started my adventure with Nightwing. I played through most of the opening with him and got his knighthood unlocked. Flew around with his Fortnite glider for a little bit, and then I decided to get everyone else's knighthood. All of these characters have their own abilities, have different combo attacks, have different animations, but I chose Batgirl to continue my playthrough. Along with the momentum attacks, there is a skill tree with a whole bunch of cool abilities that really make each character unique. In the very beginning, when you originally pick your character, you get these little descriptions. Stealth specialist, expert hacker, tough as nails, brute strength. And I thought these were just titles, but the skill tree actually builds on these. Take for example Batgirl. Being the nerd that she is, she has the ability to just be invisible to cameras. This makes her really stealthy. Also, she has a skill called Second Wind, where she comes back to life. She has these Batarang bots, she has a robot that follows her. I mean, she's just the best. You cap out at level 30 and level 40 after you finish the main story. For a good chunk of the game, you don't have all of the skills unlocked, so you really have to prioritize which ones you want. This is one of the better aspects of Gotham Knights. Now, let's get into my biggest issue, the gear. The way it's laid out feels like it was laid out for a mobile game. It is incredibly simple and incredibly overcomplicated at the same time. To a new player, this all looks ridiculous. So this is how gear works. You somehow get blueprints for specific gear, and then you can make them with materials you get throughout the game. I'm not gonna lie, most of the suits look like shit, and these suits are entire suits. They're not single customizable pieces that make up a set, and this whole blueprint nonsense is a step too many. So hear me out. We get rid of the blueprints entirely, you just get gear throughout the game, we do away with materials, so when you go around opening chests or completing side quests, you get cool armor pieces that can make up a set. So instead of getting a suit, for example, you can get a gauntlet or a chest piece. Or for example, when you defeat an owl's nest and open up the chest, you get an owl themed mask or a cowl. It makes it way more interactive and not just base level customization. So let's talk about transmog suits for a second. This is where the good suits are, and they are all locked behind challenges, which I like. So let's change a part of this. Transmog suits will no longer apply to the suit you have on, but they will be their own individual suits. And this is the part that really bugged me. Why can you not fuse gear together? Let's say you have these really cool batarangs for a second. They have these cool elemental perks and 3 slots for mods, but oh no, it's a lower power level, and it's really holding your loadout back. But then you get this new blueprint for uncommon batarangs with no perk slots but a really high power level. So tell me why they couldn't add a system to fuse these two together to get the best of both worlds. It seems like another missed opportunity. And what makes it worse is that you can fuse mod chips together, but not gear. This process is already in the game. Like, this isn't some crazy thing that's gonna break the game. They can do this and they just left it out. And the rewards you get from side activities are unnoticeable. None of the chest rewards feel earned. You open it expecting something big to pop up on the screen, and you get this little tiny thing that creeps up on the side. I don't even know what I get half the time because it's not noticeable. Every time I opened a chest, I felt let down. Now let's say some cool armor piece popped up. Now I would be excited. Giving the user more variety in how the character looks makes it more fun versus a bunch of preset looks. And there is a tiny bit of customization in the suits. You have 3 presets for every piece of the original suit. But like I said before, they look like shit. And when you apply the dope-ass transmog, you get a little pop-up that says, transmog suits cannot be customized. And when I read that, I almost fell out of my chair. Why can't you customize these really cool suits? Not to mention how all of the weapons feel the exact same. Outside of the elemental burns, the titles make you think they have some edge on each other, like the pair batarangs or the momentum batons. But no, they all play the exact same way. I want them to tell me the benefit of using this bow staff or using this slingshot or these batarangs. Mod chips are their own other ballgame entirely. So you can only apply mod chips to suits that have mod slots. And I finally figured this out after trying to apply mods to gray suits for hours. The mods themselves are a good idea, but all they really do is boost power levels. How about we make them actually useful? How about the mods apply a certain effect to your armor? So we add these new mods, like a poison mod, an electricity mod, or a freeze mod, to the already existing pool of mod chips. This would give the mods some sort of purpose outside of simply boosting power level. I haven't even touched multiplayer. This could be for the better, or I could be missing out on the best part of the game, but I've had enough Gotham Knights for quite a while. I didn't really know where this would fit in, but if you think your job is useless, if you think you serve no purpose, someone had to write out all of these emails, you know, the ones on the side, for no one. Literally no one to ever look at. All of these different, probably really interesting emails that probably build on the lore. Yeah, no, I opened them the first time and then never again. And it just seems like there was a lot they could have added to make the game feel more cohesive, but they just didn't bother and they spent their times writing emails. I know this game isn't in the same continuity as the Arkham series, but you can see how basic and simple this game looks when you put it side by side to any Arkham game. So let's just try and figure out why. And it can all be traced back to the publisher. Rocksteady were the ones behind the Arkham series, and this game was produced by my mortal enemy, Warner Brothers. Rocksteady is making a Suicide Squad game, and that should be out next year, and I can wholeheartedly say that will be leagues better than this. I read this comment that sums it up perfectly. We've reached a point where technology is not the bottleneck anymore. It is the creativity of the devs. And that's why the Arkham series feels so much better than Gotham Knights, because of the aesthetic, because of the creativity of the devs. And in Gotham Knights, Gotham is kind of it doesn't really have much personality. There is a lot I would change, but this is a very fine base game. Gotham Knights is either a 4 or a 5 out of 10. It's very average, maybe a bit below average. But I'm done with this game. Probably the last time I'm ever gonna play it. All I can say is there are no loot boxes, so that's kinda good.